Hey there everybody, it's Bruce from Nature Calls, and I am out in my new Packraft that I made. I made it from a DIY kit, and I'll put all the links below. And normally I try and show you everything that goes into building something, like a quilt or a hammock or whatever. But after researching everything with this DIY Packraft, this kit that you get from Matt has got so much going for it that I wouldn't even try. And he has great videos on how to build it and how to learn how to iron things, and it's all thermoplastic urethane, and he just does such a great job. But I will show the build so you can see it's the first time I did it. This one here, I definitely was a learning curve. And this is like their standard Packraft. It's probably about 4 pounds. This paddle's about 1 pound, so about 5 pounds total for this. I've actually got the next model, which is the ultralight, which is around 3 pounds. And so I'll have a whole Packraft kit for around 4 pounds that we'll be taking backpacking. So hope you enjoy the video, and I'm gonna go paddle around a little bit. And one of the things that I had to do is I had little tiny leaks everywhere. I think I've got another little leak, either that or just the cold water has decreased the air pressure. So it's really easy to find the leaks and then just go back and iron them down a little bit more. I definitely learned a lot on this build, but I think it's such a great project. And Matt, when you send away, you get all the kits, you get all the pieces cut already, pre-cut. I'm going to be putting some little tie-offs, and you can get a spray deck for it. You can just do tons with these, and so that's coming up, and I'll videotape putting on the tie-outs and things like that. Plus the new build of the ultralight one. But yeah, I've learned a lot, and plus the iron that he suggests. This is like their middle thickness of TPU fabric, and so you have to iron it a lot longer. So I might get a hotter iron, but the iron I have will probably work fine for the ultralight. But definitely irons and things like that, you learn. So, but I think it's just awesome. And if you're thinking about doing pack rafting and you like to do it yourself, it's a great deal. Okay, see you on the build. All right, so the kit that you get from DIY Packraft, Matt is really, he just gives you everything, 99% of what you need. This blue that you're seeing is the color I chose for my tubes, and that comes in a big long sheet, and it's already pre-marked or cut a little bit. You just have to cut it out, but he's got everything labeled in the big sheet. And then this black stuff is the floor. It's actually a little bit thicker, and it's got the TPU on both sides. The blue only has it on the one side, but he has everything marked out. He also supplies this is for an inflatable seat, and this light material is for an inflation bag. He gives you all the parts for that. The fill-up valves. I opted for a zipper so I can stow gear inside. Now this raft is kind of like the standard raft, and he has an ultralight version. It's like 1.7 pounds. I think this one turns out to be a little under 5. He's got a heavier duty version of this for like whitewater rapids leaning. He doesn't condone any of that because he doesn't want to be liable. Then he has a 2-person raft, but I chose for like his good standard model. It's actually, I think it's 3rd or 4th version, so it's an up-to-date plan. And watched all of his videos, and there's a few items that you need to add or you need to supply. One's an iron. And I got this iron. If you go on a site, they do recommendations. I modified this iron per recommendations. And I've gone through like a session of just bonding scraps together, and it really bonds. I mean, I've got it to where I can't, with all my strength, I cannot pull that bond apart. So it is possible to build a raft without having any of the high-tech equipment. This is as high-tech really as you get. This and a silicone roller and some seam grip, just to add a little bit more. There's spots where you have a lot of seams that come together, so it's always good just to add a little bit of seam grip. You will use this in other areas. The brand manufacturers do this as well. Some Sharpies, I like silver. I know Matt likes silver, and a nice ruler to get you started. So the first thing, once you've kind of inventoried everything, cut everything out, is to start at it. And the first tubes are called the threes, and that's the middle tubes. So I'll get set up to start bonding the middle tubes. Now each of his rafts have different directions and tips, but they're really good. And I don't know much about raft design yet, but it's pretty incredible how he does it all. So we're going to put on, I already put on that side tube. And my burner's not so wide, so I'm going to trim this down a little bit. As long as you have, he says it's 3/4 of an inch of this bonded, that's plenty. And I did my test. It was definitely very, very, very strong. And we'll line it up with the marks. I've kind of found, because I'm working on a wood surface, I can actually use these pins to hold it in place. It seems to work just fine. As I bond, the TPU will fill in any of these kind of holes that I have. The first thing I want to do is tack it down in a few spots. And where I've drawn that line, that's where I want to have a nice clean edge. So I'll tack it down kind of on there as good as any. Now you kind of just hold it for a while, and you get it hot enough so that that TPU on both pieces are melting together. You take your roller. You can't really tell maybe, but it's darker than this, so you can kind of tell when it's gone hot enough. And you want to get right up to the edge. Make sure you got that line. So it does take a while. I mean, I've probably put at this point probably a good 4 hours into this raft. Until it's hot enough, because when you get a little bubble, then you press down on it with that roller and it gets it right away. This will probably take me a good 10 minutes to do this side.
I'll take that pin out. And just the fact that it's melting all this TPU will fill in that pinhole, no problem. Okay, then the next thing we can do if we ever get the chance is to do a little bit of reinforcement. So we fold that back. We take some of the scrap. We pull this way. Grab our iron. I'm going to tack it, and I'm going to push up against that crease where I folded it over. And then I'll go all the way along here, and then I'll tack that other side down. This way it adds some nice reinforcement to the tube. So this part here, this is where your feet would be or where you're sitting. Get that up nice and tight. And just go onto the tube fabric. It gives you a real nice joint. Now to complete the number 3 or the middle tube, we've got little tricks. So I'm actually going to be doing this inside out. I got a block of wood. I've got my fabric pulled around the whole thing. Now I want to make sure this all lines up real nice. And I'm going to pin that in place like I did before. And then I'll heat seal this side. So this will be the inside of the tube. So I'll invert it here in a second. I'm just going to tack it in a few spots. And you can feel where that edge is. So we want to make sure that's really nicely bonded. Away we go. Now to finish tube 2, got a headlight on, and then you gotta shove something down inside of there. I've got my pet's water dish, and now we reach down in there. Tack it up here. We'll seal that all in. These little overhangs, I can just trim that off just a little bit. That's not a big worry. Okay, now to start joining the tubes together, we get these these strips of TPU on one side and fabric on the other. And right in between the two seams, there's a little bit I can tack down a little bit more. Now looking at it the next day. I'm gonna just tack this down. That right up to the edge. This is all going to help seal everything up. We've got parchment paper in here, and I'm going to go as far as I can. Then I'll have to move to some forms. Making sure I get all these little connector points all melted together. And get down this other end. What, about an inch? We'll round this off. We'll put the parchment paper underneath there and glue that to the bottom. And one of the things I'm putting as an option is a waterproof zipper, so I can stow gear inside it. And this is actually one of the probably the worst parts of when you cut into when you actually cut into your setup. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3.5. Right about there. Yeah, that's right on it. So I'm going to cut a big hole where this zipper is going to be, and that's probably probably the scariest part of all this. Luckily, actually, even if I cut this whole section out, I could patch that whole thing. The TPU is strong enough to do that. So I'm going to cut out the zipper area. So this is the side that's TPU, and since the TPU is on the outside, I can't do that. So this is a patch or cover of fabric, and we will glue this TPU to that TPU, and then this will give us a good inch to seal around on the raft. Now the zipper itself is TPU on this side, and if this TPU was on the inside of my tube, I could heat seal it right to it, but I'm going to have to heat seal a patch over the top that will then heat seal onto the outer surface. So we get that set up. All right, so now I've got the zipper with the patch. Out. And so one of the things that you can do as you go along, and you definitely need to do it where you have a bunch of the seams coming together. There's like three or four different pieces of fabric right there. So you get this seam grip with waterproof sealer, and while you're working, it's a good time. As you've got things open to if you feel there's any issues at all, to maybe just put a little dab of the water seam grip on, and while that's drying, because it takes a while to dry, you can work on other things. And one of the things that you need to do is put in a Boston valve to fill up your raft. So, another thing is, you come up with neat little forms. So this is a form that I use inside of the things to iron on. It's got double stick tape on it. Also got a hole drilled in it now for my Boston valve. The Boston valve right here, it's heat sealable rubber. I've cut a hole where I want it. This is the back tube, so this will be actually on my left side. But I'm going to go ahead and heat seal that on. Yeah, having these little forms is really nice. So it's something nice to put it against. So we'll heat seal that on. Plus, then I've got another piece for the other side. See if my heat sealer's up to speed. My magic iron. And all these directions are something that Matt, the guy that does DIY Packrafts, and he's got tons of videos on it. That's why I'm not getting too intense on how to actually do all this, because he's done such a great job of putting all these kits together, and they're his designs, and so it's and I don't think you could actually do it yourself cheaper. I mean, I guess if I wanted to do it myself, I would get a designer to actually help me design the rafts, because I wouldn't, it's not right to use other people's designs. But there again, he's got so many great designs, and he puts the kits together, and you just get everything. So I've got the TPU side down and the TPU side on the heat sealable Boston valve are both touching each other. So they are gluing it up. And then I will probably also go ahead and do some of this waterproof seam grip on here also, just to make sure. Looking good. Matt has great videos on just how to do the Boston valve. Great. Right, nice and sealed up. That's great. I'll turn that over. Put that end in. Get that in there. There we go. Now I'll take the ring that I made and we'll go ahead and seal that side on. Now the round tubes were fairly straightforward, fairly easy. Now we're getting into the ends, and as you can see, these are pretty strange, and so you just gotta commit to it. So you start off the same. Like that. And I'll seal that down. Kind of tack it. A nice edge. I've kind of learned over time a couple things, is that having the width of the iron and maybe a little bit more is actually very helpful. So I've been cutting these little tabs, not so narrow anymore. also having this roll. Also learned that I've been seam sealing as I go. I didn't seam seal in the beginning, and so I had to seam seal through this tube and through the big tube. And if I would have seam sealed some of the big tube as much as I could have before I put on the this is just like all the rest, but then when you start putting the seam tape on, you just kind of got to go with it. And it does come out in the end. All right, so at this point of the game, I am doing the last panel. I did the bow, and now I'm back in the aft. This is my last panel to do. So what have I learned? Definitely one of the things I've learned is, there's a lot of these places where you will never see. So, making alignment lines so you can make sure you're on track is very helpful. Like this one right here. It just gives me a little bit, with the black and the blue. But, some of the things I've learned is like, you're not in a rush to do any of these things. Even when you're doing the welding, if it just isn't feeling right, you can stop. And if you haven't welded it too much, then it just kind of pulls apart. Once you do weld it down good and tight, then yeah, it's gonna start peeling off the TPU and cause you problems. But if you're just not feeling right with your angle or how you have something done, just kind of stop and redo the whole thing, take it all the way apart. I've definitely found that sometimes you feel like you're in a rush, but you're really not. You really aren't. Another thing that I've kind of come to the conclusion is a lot of times I would put like some of the reinforcing fabric in the beginning. I made it as narrow as I could make it. But if you make it at least the width of your iron, it's going to make things a lot easier on you. And then you can always go back. It seems, it's like if you find a spot that you didn't quite weld down, you can easily go back and re-weld it. Even if it's been, say, on the first one, I could figure out a way to get to that spot. That's the other thing, is like feeling comfortable enough to turn this whole thing inside out to get to something. You can do it. So I know in the beginning I felt like it was fragile, but it's actually pretty easy to kind of manipulate it so you can get to certain areas and just make sure it's done right. And even though all these pieces are cut really nicely to begin with, you almost got to kind of listen to your fabric, because sometimes with the way it's expanding and heating and doing all those things, you may end up with like a 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch of expansion just because of how things were kind of dynamically going together. You can see I've kind of figured out, you just kind of take your time. Nothing's too much of a hurry. I think before I do my next one, I already did sand this iron down pretty flat. I'm going to probably keep working on it to make it even flatter. Still has kind of a little bit of an arc to it. I think it'd be a lot better if it was as flat as you can get it. So I will definitely work on that, I think, before I start my next raft. I'm kind of used to it now. But it'd be worth taking the time to get it just right. And these little rollers are money. They make all the difference. And you get a real confidence in the weld when you can press down on it with this. I know you can use a rag or whatever, but these little rollers, probably $10, really made a big difference. So I will finish up number 4. Weld that to number 1 or number 3 center tube. And then all we have left is to do this back seam. The thing is, you get used to using just the tip to heat up in little spots. It works really well. But yeah, like turning it inside out and kind of making sure it's all sealed as you go, as much as you can. You might as well use a seam sealer on everything, in my opinion, because it's not that this stuff doesn't bind really well together. It definitely, the TPU does glue really well, but in the off chance, you might as well have seam sealer all around on it.